Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Well, Stephanie, I guess that it was just a 2.5 week ceasefire because now the feud between Elon and Trump has reignited, and boy, did it escalate quickly. So, for anyone who hasn't been following what happened over the last like 3 days, Elon started criticizing the big, beautiful bill again over the weekend, and he made some very inflammatory posts on X starting late Saturday night. He said, quote, "The latest Senate draft bill will destroy millions of jobs in America and cause immense strategic harm to our country. Utterly insane and destructive. Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history, they will lose their primary next year if it's the last thing I do on this earth."
God. Like, just stop already, you know?
But this, of course, was after, the Senate pushed the bill through. And then yesterday, Elon posted, quote, "It is obvious with the insane spending bill, which increases the debt ceiling by a record $5 trillion." dollars. And he's like taking a page out of Trump's book because he's putting that in all caps. And then he says, "We live in a one-party country, the Porky Pig Party." And then he followed that up with, quote, "If this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day," end quote. So Trump responded with an early morning Truth Social post yesterday, and he said, "Elon Musk knew long before he so strongly endorsed me for president that I was strongly against the EV mandate. It is ridiculous and was always a major part of my campaign. Electric cars are fine, but not everyone should be forced to own one. Elon may get more subsidy than any one human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa. No more rocket launches, satellites, or electric car production, and our country would save a fortune. Perhaps we should have Doge take a good hard look at this. Big money to be saved." And then later in the day, he was being questioned about it by the press, and a reporter asked Trump if he would deport Elon, and he said, quote, "I don't know. We'll have to take a look. We might have to put Doge on Elon. Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible?"
And he was like laughing too. Like, I think he's having too much fun with this.
Oh, I know. Well, then Elon lashes back on X and says, quote, "So tempting to escalate this. So, so tempting, but I will refrain for now." Okay, Stephanie, I love Trump. I love what Elon did to help Trump's campaign. I think he has actually been great for the America First movement up until this whole spending bill thing. And I can see his point with the bill. But I just can't wrap my head around the social media catfights that are taking place at this high level in government. And I just think it's ridiculous.
I mean, it is so ridiculous that it really makes me think one of two things. Either Elon Musk is like mentally ill, and that's what's causing these major mood swings and social media rants, which is, obviously a possibility. Or this whole thing is one big act to try and like distract us from something else going on behind the scenes or just one of like their chess moves. And the fact that he's using like the big caps and posting like Trump makes me think that actually could be the reason. I could see them like laughing at like Mar-a-Lago and like creating all these posts. But the whole thing's just weird. Maybe it's a little bit of both. I mean, I know if you look throughout history at like all of the billionaires and inventors and, genius level people, they're all socially strange. And, you combine that with the fact that Elon's life has been completely upended, as well as his company Tesla going through all that scrutiny, during Doge. I think that's enough to trigger an episode if he does have something, going on with his mental health. Um, and I don't blame him for, any of it, but for his own sake, like shut the fuck up because it's really making him look petty and unhinged. And I think, whether you like the bill or you hate the bill, acting like a middle school mean girl is not a good look. And it's not going to help you with this party that you want to form, which I don't understand like his play here. If that's the thing that he's like planning to start his own party, so he's trying to break away from Trump, what what is the ultimate goal here? Like you've already pissed off the left the moment you bought Twitter. Now you've pissed off the right by attacking Trump. There's not that many people in the like truly in the middle that don't have an opinion. So I don't really understand what he's doing, which makes me think he's lost his damn mind. But the whole thing, it's just unfortunate. And I think they made a great team. And if they would just work together, things could improve. But clearly they could only get along for a few months because they're a bunch of middle school mean girls. So I don't know. I just think it's a bad look and it's giving everyone on the left the right to say, I told you so. Told you he's crazy. Told you Trump's crazy. Told you so. Like they're just running with this and it's annoying.
Yeah, because it is both of them. I mean, we've seen Trump pull the mean girl many times.
Hmm.
I do think he's being fairly tame so far. And if you look, like, compare the way he goes off on other people, he hasn't been as extreme, but he is kind of, making some threats that he knows will rile up Elon. But he's also lining up broader GOP support at the same time. And have you ever heard of James Fishback?
No.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
I didn't know who he was either, but he's like this up and coming 30-year-old guy who's making, I guess, a pretty big name for himself in like private equity and venture investing. And he's the founder and CEO of an investment company called Azoria Partners. This guy was also a former advisor at Doge, but he stepped away in May after Elon started publicly mocking and clashing with Trump. And I guess he's still very supportive of Elon from like a business perspective, but he thinks all the crazy shit that Elon's doing is harming the GOP. And when he stepped down from Doge, he told Politico that Elon's quote, baseless personal attacks against President Trump are not okay. And then since it's picked up again, he recently commented and said, there's real frustration in our movement with Elon and his antics. I'm a big believer in what he's doing in the private sector, but when it comes to politics, he's dead wrong on this. So this guy Fishback just launched a super PAC called FSD, which stands for Full Support for Donald. And I guess FSD is a play on Tesla's FSD for full self-driving system. And his aim is basically to counter Elon's political influence in the GOP primaries by financing campaigns against lawmakers or challengers that Elon is going to be supporting. He's already personally put $1 million into this PAC to get it started. And I think it's literally brand new. So we haven't seen any other contributions yet. But I'm really curious to see who gets on board with this.
Well, I am too. And like the thing with Elon is we saw him pour all that money into Wisconsin and
Right.
then things didn't go his way. And people were like, it seems like whatever Elon touches, like no one wants to be a part of, like when it comes to politics. So, I mean, he can threaten this, but at the end of the day, like no one was following Elon. People were following Trump. And Elon jumped on board, and everyone was a little iffy with him, including us. We were like, we don't know if we
Right.
can trust this guy. And, I think he's a billionaire that has all these companies where he never hears someone tell him no or challenge him. And you put him with another person like that, which is Trump, and there's going to be conflict. But, like, I mean, it's just embarrassing and ridiculous at this point. So, this will be interesting to see what this pack does.
Well, it is embarrassing because if you look at how this is playing out on the world stage, it's totally fucking embarrassing. And I guess there's a social media platform in China called Weibo. Do you know what that is?
No.
That's another thing I've never heard of, but it's apparently like a combination of X and Facebook, and it's one of China's most influential social platforms. I guess they have something like 600 million users. And the most prominent hashtag right now is hashtag Musk wants to build an American party. And I guess it's gotten around 37 million views, and the overall Chinese sentiment is leaning very pro Elon, which isn't a surprise considering, what's going on between the US and China. But it's not just China. You have Russia's former president and Security Council deputy Dmitry Medvedev, who jokingly offered to mediate a peace deal between Trump and Elon. The reaction from Germany has been relief that Trump is more focused on domestic drama than foreign policy. And even in Trump's recent meeting with South African leader Cyril Ramaphosa, he commented that Trump was preoccupied with Elon instead of focusing on global diplomacy. And I guess market shares for Tesla have dropped by like 5% in the last couple days because of Trump's threat to cut subsidies. And I'm mentioning all this because, again, I just think it's so insane and like disturbingly fascinating how the United States plays out like a circus show on the world stage, and it's all being done through social media.
Well, yeah. And, he's probably panicking if his shares are dropping by 5% on top of like all the shit that happened with Tesla prior. So I'm sure he's panicking. But then on the flip side, all of his like SpaceX, for example, they're like the biggest government private contractor. They have all these contracts. Like, why is he messing with the president of the government to which you're getting all this money through contracts? Like, the whole thing, it's just so hard to say because, on the one hand, he's a genius and is this a chess move? Or on the other hand, is he like literally losing his mind? And I'm thinking he's losing his mind.
Yeah, but of course, like the mainstream media is focused not on Elon being crazy, but on that reporter asking Trump if he would consider deporting Elon. And like he can't. Elon's a naturalized citizen. And
Right.
Trump's like making jokes about it. But that's all. I mean, I must have seen 30 articles. Trump is threatening to deport Elon. And it's like that's not
They
going to
take it
happen.
so out of context and they don't have a sense of humor, so they don't get the joke, but
Exactly.
no surprise.
But despite, all of Elon's crying and protesting, Senate Republicans did squeak by with a victory in passing the Big Beautiful Bill on Tuesday in a vote of 51 to 50. And JD Vance did cast the tie-breaking vote. And similar to the procedural voting that happened on Saturday, GOP Senators Tom Tillis and Rand Paul voted against the bill. But this time, so did Susan Collins, and she joined with them and the Democrats in opposition, which is why J.D. Vance had to be the tiebreaker vote. So now the bill has returned to the House for reconciliation because they made several amendments that differed from the version that they originally passed. And we can pretty much guarantee that Thomas Massie is going to vote against him or against it. And Trump is still bashing him on Truth Social. I think his latest post from yesterday was, quote, new poll, anybody I endorse beats Thomas Massie of Kentucky by 25 points. Get ready. Massie is a very bad guy. But Stephanie, I've got to
Why
give Massie,
Massey?
I
Why
know,
like
well, I know, but I got to give him credit for sticking to his guns in the way not only that he sticks to his policy, but he's not really letting Trump intimidate him. And Trump said that he's going to actively campaign to get Massey out of office and put an American patriot in his place. And I guess Trump's team recently launched the MAGA Kentucky Super PAC to target Massey. And Massey's response has been to just kind of laugh it off and dismiss Trump's threats. He did an interview with Time a couple weeks ago when this, you know, process with the bill first came up. And he said something like, in 2020, I got my Trump antibodies from a natural infection when he came after me and I survived. It will deplete his political capital if he doesn't succeed, and he knows that. And I guess he was referencing this time in 2020 when Trump tried to primary him for forcing a recorded vote on the COVID stimulus, but Massey still easily won the race. So this history between them goes back to Trump's first administration. And Massey recently made a post on X where he said, they can threaten to primary me, but they can't make me vote for more debt. So, we'll see how far Trump pushes it with Massey. But it's not just him. There's several other reps in the House who were also against the big beautiful bill, including some of the Freedom Caucus members that are always the holdouts. And the most recent update I saw this morning was that House Speaker Mike Johnson convened the Rules Committee yesterday, and they like stayed up all night debating. And you had Reps Ralph Norman and Chip Roy that voted against advancing the bill out of committee, but it ultimately passed with a 7-6 vote. So today it goes to the House floor for voting. And I guess they're going to start with the procedural rule vote to allow debate on the Senate's version of the bill. And if that passes, then they'll hold the final vote later today. So I fucking hope that they will make a quick decision and get it over with so we can just stop talking about this nonsense and move on.
Well, I hope so too, but now I'm not so sure because I was listening to some different things this morning, and like one of the rumors going around is that now there's supposedly, I mean, who knows, because these are from like anonymous sources, right? But supposedly there's like 20 Republicans that are planning on voting no because when they made all those amendments, they took out like, I mean, there's some pretty big things. Like, I guess they took out the thing that said that illegals can't have Medicaid. So, like, that was something that, and like things like that that really pissed off Republicans, obviously. So I think Trump's focusing all his energy on Massey, who is never going to say yes to this bill. Meanwhile, you have all these other people that are like, wait a minute, you made all these changes. Now I'm not for that. But I have to say, I wish I had the clip from this because I personally, I'm not like a hateful person, but Caitlin Collins on CNN, oh my, I cannot stand her. Like every time she talks, I want to like, oh, I can't stand the woman. And she had on Tim Burchett, who's like one of my favorite
Yes,
politicians, and
I
he's
like
so
him too.
likable. And she was just being such a bitch to him. And he made a really good point about this bill because the thing that I don't like about the bill is that it's going to increase debt, and they said what, like 3 to 5 trillion dollars.
Yeah,
And so he's
five.
talking to the Democrats and he's like, oh, it's so funny how all of a sudden you're so against the debt increasing 3 to 5 trillion over 10 years when under the Biden administration, it increased 1 trillion every 100 days. So under Biden, it increased $12 trillion. They didn't care, but then they do care about 3 to 5 trillion over 10 years. So I was like, okay, that's a good point. Well, then I heard another congressman talking about how much money this will bring in. So he was like, tariffs, you can't calculate what tariffs is going to bring in because it's not part of the legislation. But we all know tariffs are working. And he was saying if they stay in place, that would be like $8 trillion. So just tariffs alone would offset the increase, not to mention all the other things that it's doing. So that made me like any concern I had has kind of been like wiped clean. But now I'm thinking it might not go through if all these Republicans are pissed at the amendments from the Senate. So who
Yeah,
knows?
I
I just
know.
want it to be over.
Exactly. So like I said, I really hope that they can all get their shit together like the Democrats do and fucking vote in unison so that we can move forward as a country because not approving it is just a fucking sideshow at this point, like most things that Congress does. But on another topic, did you see that Trump visited the Alligator Alcatraz in your state yesterday?
Yes, yes. I saw a few days ago, DeSantis was at some event and he announced it. Someone had asked him, and when he was like, yeah, like Trump's coming and we're happy to have him, everyone went nuts and started like cheering. And I was like, yes, like let's get back to this when him and Trump were buddies and they worked together and they weren't being like mean, middle school girls. Um, but I think the reason why they're coming back together is because DeSantis's term is almost up and his wife, everyone's saying his wife's going to run. So I'm sure like they want Trump's endorsement. But I'm telling you, like this woman, I love her. Like it's making me want to get into politics to campaign for her because she is so pro like parental rights and homeschooling and everything else. So get ready because I'm probably going to talk a lot about her once she officially announces it. But I think that like kind of helped to smooth things over. And I think Trump supports her. So it'll be good. And I'm glad to see them working together. But I was shocked on, I'm on all these like Florida mom pages, right? There are so many like do-gooder moms posting like crazy about Alligator Alcatraz and how this is so bad for the Everglades and like we need to save the Everglades. But here's the thing, this facility already existed. That is why it's opening so quickly because it's already there. Like they already built it. It's already part of the Everglades. It's just being converted so it can actually be used instead of sitting there doing nothing. And so I just wish like more people would kind of understand what's going on, but it's clear to me that like no one's paying attention or very educated on this. But I'm really, really excited about it. And I have to tell you, I had a dream the other night, and I swear it's because we talked about this on the podcast. Because I had a dream that I looked out my window and my pool had these like gigantic 10-foot long pythons like swimming around. And I think it's because like everyone's talking about alligator Alcatraz and how there like there's these massive, I mean like 10, 15-foot pythons there. And it's literally becoming part of my dream. So my I think I need a break from the podcast because when I start dreaming about stuff, like that's my sign. Okay, like you're taking this a little too seriously now.
Yeah, not a good sign.
No.
I do think, though, that Trump was apparently very impressed by it. And he said that it might be as good as the real Alcatraz. And then he said something about how, like, this idea should be turned into a nationwide prison system where places like this are built in states across the country. And I think that would actually be pretty awesome. Like, imagine if we had a whole series of like natural predator themed prisons, and each one is surrounded by some body of water with man-eating predators. Or even if it's not a body of water, you could do it like the zoo, where you have like
Ooh.
those enclosures, where it's like
Yeah,
the animals can't get to the people, but except they could get to the people. And then really, how many prison guards do you need? How much security do you need if you
right.
just have a fucking fence and man-eating animals?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it sounds that sounds like a really good reality show. I could see like you have like a red state and like maybe they make theirs like in the desert and there's nothing around for like miles and there's all the desert predators and then you have one like in the mountains where, you know, not even like the best backpackers can survive very long in the mountains by themselves. Like this would make for great TV. I mean,
Absolutely.
Trump was on reality TV. Like maybe he can talk to his people and work something out. That's Tara, that is a good idea. If someone steals your idea, we're coming back to this episode and playing it again. Okay, we have to talk about this. I didn't even know this was going on until like yesterday. Operation Gold Rush. Did you hear about this? Because I did not know about this. Okay.
No, not at all.
So this was the like massive healthcare fraud takedown that we didn't even know was happening. And the DOJ just like out of the blue announces it. And I guess it's the largest in US history involving 324 arrests tied to $14.6 billion in intended fraudulent claims. So I guess it was 324 defendants charged across 50 federal districts and 12 state attorney general offices. So this was just massive. And they found 96 licensed medical professionals like doctors, nurses, pharmacists that were charged. They seized over $245 million in assets like cash, crypto, luxury vehicles. So here's what happened. You had these foreign criminal syndicates in Russia and Eastern Europe that used over a million stolen identities to buy US medical supply companies. They filed $10.6 billion in false Medicare claims for things like urinary catheters and braces. There was over $1 billion in fraudulent claims for genetic testing and telemedicine, another billion in false billing for unnecessary procedures that were actually administered at times to terminally ill patients. Like, how fucked up is that? Then there were illegal distribution of over 15 million opioid prescription pills, over $1.8 billion in false claims from diagnostic tests, mental health billing, COVID tests, hospice, and I guess kickback scams. So, in addition to these like transnational criminal organizations, there were a bunch of domestic cases as well. And I was reading like some of the worst were there was a Connecticut nurse who prescribed benzodiazepines and amphetamines illegally to like for cash, and five patients died as a result of that. In Bethel, Connecticut, a medical supplier submitted over $152,000 in false DME claims and lost $17 million in seized accounts. There were a bunch of Houston doctors and like businesses that were indicted for $45 million in Medicare fraud for, again, unnecessary procedures. And then a $293 million COVID testing scam. Like, what in the actual hell? Like, this was bad. And so what's interesting is with the transnational criminals, typically it's damn near impossible to stop them, especially if they're out of the country. But I guess what happened was federal agents were able to make the arrests at US airports and the US Mexico border as these people were trying to escape. So I guess that's why no one heard about it. Like this was secret. They didn't want to put it out there because everyone would flee and they were able to get like all these people. And all I can say is it's about damn time we start seeing criminal arrests for all the fraud taking place. And I think that's something that Elon should be celebrating. Maybe he can go post on X about it.
Yeah, this is crazy. I hadn't heard anything about it. And I want to know, like, how long was this going on? Because this must have been a very lengthy investigation that they had to be looking at for a while to
Right.
make this many arrests and
It,
have, what did you say, like 324 arrests?
it makes me wonder like how many other investigations that are secret are they working
Mhm.
on? Hopefully more.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, I will say, like, I'm very excited about all of the investigations that have been revealed during the Trump admin so far. I mean, we're like 7 months into the year, and almost on a every time we do a podcast, we're talking about a new investigation.
Yeah.
So I am very happy about this. But speaking of criminal arrests and feeling happy, it seems that Los Angeles is actually pursuing felony charges for over 40 of the 560 anti-ICE rioters who have been arrested since June 8th. And LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman gave a statement yesterday where he said, the large-scale protests may have ended for now, but our work has not. We're continuing to review evidence, identify suspects, and file charges where the law has been broken. So, Stephanie, listen to some of these arrests. One is a 17-year-old kid who isn't being named and no details are being given, but he's being charged with attempted murder, assault on a police officer, vandalism, and rioting. Then there's Robert Amaya, a 49-year-old who was charged with felony assault with a deadly weapon for threatening an 11-year-old girl with a knife. Patrick Munoz, a 37-year-old who allegedly whacked a cop with a flagpole outside of a hotel in LA where protesters believed ICE agents were staying, even though they weren't. Then there's Iran Castro, 29, and Dana Whitson, who is 66. And you probably saw both of them all over the news because they were two of the people who were charged with felony assault on law enforcement, resisting arrest, and animal cruelty to police horses. And I don't even know if these are the ones we saw because I think these might have been sheriff's department horses and not even the LAPD horses. And then there was Robert McGrath, a 20-year-old who was charged with felony vandalism for spray painting profanities on VA buildings. And then 30 plus other, quote unquote protesters who are facing felony charges ranging from rioting and assault to vandalism, including more incidents involving officers and their horses being attacked, people with weapons, resisting arrest, destruction of property. And I want to go off on a slight tangent here for a second because you know I love to rant about Los Angeles because this shit is so fucking predictable, okay? So, as a result of the riots, the city incurred more than $32 million in damages.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but 29.5 million of that was just for LAPD deployment for overtime and like tactical operations. And then the rest was spent on cleanup. So there was almost 600,000 for damage to public property like City Hall, parks and streets, 523,000 for street cleanup, and 85,000 for graffiti removal. And this 32 million does not account for any other city expenses like the fire department, public works, or lawsuits and insurance claims from all the damages to private businesses. And none of this was budgeted, of course. So the city had to dip into $22 million in reserve funds. And meanwhile, Newsom just approved the largest fucking budget in California history for this fiscal year 25-26 to the tune of $321 billion, even though the state still has a $12 billion deficit. And that's like a whole other story I'm not going to get into, but it's absolutely insane. But remember how I mentioned when the riots started that Mayor Karen Bass said it was everyone in the community's responsibility to help with the cleanup, especially because, the World Cup and the Olympics are coming to LA next year. Well,
Yeah, even
Stephanie,
though it's her responsibility to not allow this to happen in the first place, but whatever.
yes, but Stephanie, people are fucking doing it. Hundreds of volunteers have been showing up at these, they're called like Shine LA events, and people are scrubbing graffiti and cleaning debris downtown. And I'm sorry, but I think this is absolutely fucking insane. California residents pay some of the highest taxes in the nation. It's like 10 to 13% state income tax, the highest gas taxes in the country, super inflated sales taxes, and outrageous property taxes. We've talked about this like multiple times. And they've already funded the cleanup crews and the police overtime and the government salaries to the tune of $32 million. And now they're voluntarily cleaning up the mess that was created by riots that the city's quote unquote leadership essentially enabled and encouraged. And you know what? I am all for community pride and helping out your neighbor, but assisting your incompetent leadership and giving free labor to clean up what they allowed to burn is just fucking insane. And all you people are doing is setting the stage for the same bullshit the next time riots occur, which they inevitably will, and you'll be in the same situation again. I'm sorry, but this is not the pride of Angelinos. This is fucking stupidity. And I will never understand California residents.
I don't know why people put up with it at this point. I will say I am shocked that the LADA is like prosecuting these people. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
big step up from like 2020 when they were just letting everyone run free. But what I'm curious, and maybe you'll be able to dig in on this because I know you're so good at that, especially with California, is like, are these people getting bailed out? Are they going to be with a public defender or is someone, are they going to have legal counsel and who's funding that? Because remember, like in 2020, you had people like Kamala Harris making these funds where they
Mhm.
were helping these people with legal counsel. And I wonder if that'll still be the same this time around or if it's just things have changed. But I'm kind of curious now. I'm invested in this.
Yeah, I don't think things have changed that much. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure we could track down where the funding is coming from because this is just a poor, like the names I mentioned earlier, and like what was that? 40 people. That's a portion
Out of
of,
like the hundreds.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So they were all fucking bailed out.
Right.
But a couple days ago, the Trump admin filed a lawsuit against Los Angeles, Mayor Bass, and the LA City Council, saying that LA's sanctuary city ordinances obstruct federal ICE operations and also that they violate the supremacy clause of the Constitution because they're undermining federal law enforcement and contributing to civil unrest. And the main allegations are that these sanctuary laws impeded federal agents from accessing detainees, from conducting immigration enforcement, and from sharing info with ICE. So, Attorney General Pam Bondi just recently said sanctuary policies were the driving cause of the violence, chaos, and attacks on law enforcement that Americans recently witnessed in Los Angeles. And they are the reason that the federal government deployed the National Guard and the Marines. So the LA City Attorney and the City Council are saying, no, the sanctuary ordinance is legal and it's our constitutional duty to protect immigrants. And of course, Mayor Bass said this is just an all out assault on Los Angeles. And the lawsuit is obviously pending because it just happened a few days ago. But I'm sure we'll have more on this later. I'm definitely going to follow this because I'm very curious to see how this plays out because I think the outcome is going to impact sanctuary cities across the country. Because technically, federal law always supersedes state or local law. But at the same time, like, I don't even understand how sanctuary cities can exist except they are legal under the anti-commandeering doctrine, and the federal government can't force states or cities to enforce federal law. But sanctuary cities can't block ICE from enforce in their own federal laws, which is exactly what happened with these riots. So there's a big difference between refusing to help and actual obstruction. And I think LA is in clear violation here. So I will be surprised if it's ruled that they weren't.
Well, we've talked about this so many times. Like, how are sanctuary cities allowed? They are clearly, defying federal law. But I think the answer to that is they've just never been challenged. No one's ever gone after them until now. And so, like you said, like this could change things across the country. And you'll get a kick out of this because Newsom is filing his own ridiculous lawsuit. Okay. Like he has a $787 million defamation lawsuit against Fox News. And it's pretty funny because you hear $787 million and you think like, man, this must be something big, right? No, no, not at all. Okay. So Fox News obviously is the network, but it's through Jesse Waters and correspondent John Roberts. And I guess they aired like a small segment that included a video of Trump saying, quote, I spoke with Gavin Newsom. And then like it trails off, right? So apparently, Fox News cut out the part of that quote where he said, I spoke to Gavin Newsom a day ago. So they took out a day ago. Okay. That's it. That is what this lawsuit is about because it has to do with the whole Trump deploying troops to LA. And you know how Newsom talked a big game and how he's so against this and blah, blah, blah publicly? Well, I guess when he had the phone call with Trump, he never actually talked about the troops. So it just made him look really bad. Like here publicly, you're acting like this big tough guy that doesn't want troops, but then you're on the phone with the president and you're not even bringing it up. So that's like the background, the context of it. So Newsom is saying that Fox's editing made it look like he didn't talk to Trump recently, and he said this was, quote, actual malice. But if Fox retracts and Jesse Waters apologizes on air, then he'll drop the suit, which is just like the ego on this guy. It's so freaking ridiculous. And I think this is just making him look worse than if he just like dropped the whole thing altogether. Um,
Yeah,
Go
but you
ahead.
know what? Like, speaking of these lawsuits, these media lawsuits, I guess like Trump just won his lawsuit against Paramount over edits that were made to that 60 Minutes interview. And
Yes.
I think they just settled today, I think, and they're going to pay him 16 million. I think the original suit was like 20 billion or something like that, but they're going to pay 16 million and they're not giving it directly to Trump. I guess they will give the money to like the Trump library or something like that. But I think that like that kind of sets a precedent for suing these media companies. So I don't know, maybe if
Well,
Gavin Hayes
yeah.
did there, he could win.
And that, I mean, that was a blatant, like, that was actually
Yeah.
completely editing what Kamala said, trying to make her response sound different than what it was
Mhm.
in this presidential campaign. Like, that was a
Yeah.
really big deal. And since you brought that up, I was going to bring this up later, but I'm going to bring it up now because I don't know if you saw the episode that Joe Rogan did with Bernie Sanders.
No.
Oh my gosh, it has gone viral. Like, I'm seeing so many clips of it, and it's so bad for not only Bernie, but just Democrats in general. It just makes them look ridiculous. And so the big clip that's going around is where Bernie Sanders is talking about this, how Trump is suing the media outlets, and like this is something a dictator would do and it shouldn't be allowed. And surprisingly, like Joe Rogan really wasn't letting him get away with it, which surprised me because he used to be a big Bernie supporter. So anyhow, I'm gonna play that clip that's going around social media real quick.
You're walking down a dangerous path. Suing media has the impact of intimidating media. All right, if somebody sues you, all right, we're gonna finish. All right. Okay. Somebody sues it. Why not you? Right. You could be sued tomorrow, right? Because you are doing this. You're too sympathetic to this. Right. And Joe, you did that. And they have a big law firm behind you. You're going to have to spend zillions of dollars defending yourself. You know what? Next time you do an interview, you say, maybe I'm not going to go in that area. No, but it's not that. It's editing things to make this deceptive editing. Joe, so in deceptive editing, I don't know when people a different perception of who this candidate is than reality. Right. That's not objective journalism, but that's campaigning for that person. But would you agree with that? I don't have those details. I don't know that I agree with your analysis of it. I don't know enough. I think that's universally accepted that that's what they did. And you got to tell me why he is suing ABC. Why he's suing Meta. Let's just talk about the 60 Minutes. No, but first. No, but it's not just. We could go to ABC, but I'm not aware of that. Well, George Stephanopoulos said something that he didn't like. But the point that what did Stephanopoulos say? I can't remember. It was I honestly don't remember. But well, I think what he was saying was factually incorrect about the results of one of Trump's trials. All right. Guess what? If I were to sue everybody who said things that were factually incorrect about me, I'd be suing people zillions of times. But Joe, what you're saying is, look, does media get it wrong sometimes? Absolutely. Should you have the most powerful person in America suing media? What is the impact of that? The impact is clearly intimidation. He wants to defund public broadcasting. NPR, why is that? Well, because they also will run critical stories of them. This is part, in my view, without getting into any one case, it's part of a pattern that says, hey, I got the power. Don't you criticize me. You criticize me, I'm going to sue you. So it's not whether this show was right or wrong. There are shows every day they get it wrong. It's whether you respect you and other media people to do the best that you can. And if I don't like what you're doing, I'll go someplace else. But I don't like presidents suing media, and then it's threatening to impeach judges who rule against you. Really? Is that a concern? I think it's a concern. I agree. That's a concern. Well, my concern is when you have media organizations that are purported to be objective, and then they say things that are defamatory and factually incorrect, and they should know that before they say it. What other course does a person have other than a lawsuit?
So I thought Joe Rogan did a great job of just like staying calm and not, getting emotional, but just stating some simple facts. And Bernie
Yeah,
like couldn't defend it.
he can't defend it because they can never defend the same shit that
Right.
they're doing themselves.
Yeah.
Because how many fucking Democrats in Congress have called for impeachment of Trump for lesser shit than this? So don't sit there and tell
Yeah.
me that it's wrong when you're fucking doing it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Your Democrat buddy Newsom is got a $787 million lawsuit all because you take one little portion of a sentence out. And that's okay, but it's not okay that they made this. I mean, they edited something in the biggest presidential election in modern history. Like, give me a break. But the whole interview was like that. And I think the reason it's such a big deal is because number one, like I said, Rogan used to be a big Bernie supporter. And so for him to like push back is it's saying a lot. But the whole interview, he would do that. He would stay calm. He would bring up like one little fact to Bernie, and Bernie couldn't back it up. Like, for example, you know how Bernie's all about climate change, climate change. So he brings up like global warming or something. And Rogan's like, well, didn't they just come out with an article saying that the Earth is actually cooling now and like there's all this ice back in Antarctica that was supposed to be melted? And Bernie's like, "Oh, I don't know. I didn't see that." And like that's like couldn't defend it, couldn't and like wants to change the subject. And then Bernie goes on a rant about Elon Musk and how him contributing to Trump's campaign was like total corruption. And Joe Rogan's like, didn't Kamala's campaign take in like a lot of money that was very questionable? And Bernie's just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's on both sides. They're corrupt on both sides. And so Joe Rogan's just like, okay, so that like that completely goes against his point. And then talking about socialism and like that's his big thing, you know? And Rogan was like, well, if nobody works, what gives them purpose? Like, what makes them want to get out of bed every day? And like, wouldn't that lead to a huge crisis and blah, blah, blah? And Bernie's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like,
My
he
God.
could not not defend himself at all because, like you said, it's all about emotion. And when you try to bring fact or reasoning into it, they flounder. They have nothing to say. And it's a big deal because we've talked about this so many times when they do these polls and they're asked, who is running the Democrat Party now? Like, who's the lead person? They say Bernie and AOC. And both of them, I mean, it's ridiculous. They don't have anything to actually stand on. And this interview made that very apparent. And it would be great if he could get AOC on or Newsom, but I doubt they'll ever go on Joe Rogan. So anyhow, you should watch that episode because it just tore apart like the left in one sweep. It was bad.
Okay, I definitely will. And it's
Yeah.
like we talked the other day about that Mamdani guy who's running, or
Hmm.
basically the primary candidate in New York for mayor. And I just keep seeing all these articles about how the left is completely torn over this whole thing because they know that if they support this guy, like their party is completely fucked because there's like, you just, the whole party's gone over the rails and there's no moderation. So you don't hear, other than like, the squad of crazies in Congress, I have not seen many people speaking out in support of this guy yet. And I think everyone's like, how the fuck did he win
Yeah.
the the primary? Like, I
Yeah.
think it's
Because
this is going to be very telling for the Democrat Party if he wins this election.
they've gone so far left, like they don't have any good candidates left. It's like the only people that are in the public eye are socialists. Him,
Yeah.
Bernie, AOC, like it's pretty bad and they're going to continue losing with that and they're going to continue losing with the media trying to deceive people because everyone's caught on to it now. And so I want to bring up something else that just it pisses me off, so that's why I'm going to talk about it. But you know how like Jake Tapper is going around the media circuit and he's acting like he's just so shocked about Biden's mental decline and he was lied to and he didn't know about Biden's mental decline until after the debate. Well, he went on the Ezra Klein show and basically admitted that that's bullshit. He knew before the debate because he talks about how he was worried before the debate that the fact that it was starting at 9 p.m. was not good. Biden's not going to be able to handle like a start time of 9 p.m., which would make his whole story bullshit, which we already know it is, but I feel like he just like outed himself to the whole world. So I'm just going to play the clip and I'll get your opinion on it. I thought it was funny.
At 9 p.m., which, by the way, was another shocker to me when I found out that they had agreed to do a 9 p.m. debate for an hour and a half. I thought to myself, that seems late. That's late for me. Like, how is it going to be for Joe Biden? I mean, I understand Donald Trump runs on some energy force that I don't understand, but like, that's late, but okay. I guess they know what they're doing. I think there is a degree to which of, I guess they know what they're doing infected the heads of so many of us covering him. Because why would you put him out there for an hour and a half debate at 9 o'clock at night when they could have agreed to a 7 p.m. debate? Because at 8:30, I'm supposed to be out on stage just sitting there and they were doing lighting and all that stuff. And I can't go out there because Joe Biden has just shown up a half hour before the debate. He's supposed to have been there hours before. And why was he so late? Because he didn't think he needed to do it. He didn't think he needed to do a walkthrough, which is crazy. Every candidate does a walkthrough. Barack Obama did walkthroughs. Like, you just do this. So he walks out, he hobbles out, he does that shifting thing, shuffling thing, seeming really old, but I had seen him, so I was not surprised. He starts talking. He obviously has a cold. He sounds awful. His voice is already thinner and reedier than it had been, but now it's really bad. His first answer is whatever, it's fine, serviceable. But then he gets to that horrible answer where he completely loses his train of thought. Eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare. Thank you, President Biden. President Trump was right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's just. And we have these iPads, and I wrote to the control room, "Holy smokes!" And Dana writes to me on a piece of paper, he just lost the election.
Oh man, it's been a long time since we've had a Biden gaffe.
I know. Okay, my first thought on this was like, if you were a reporter with any real fucking integrity, you would have said something then. You wouldn't have played this game and allowed him to slide through this whole interview. You would have acted like a fucking journalist and asked the difficult questions and the questions that all the American public wanted the real answers to, but you didn't. You waited until after Trump was president, and then suddenly you're going to come out with all this information. You have no fucking balls. Fuck off.
Yeah. And that's why it pisses me off so much. And I think just admitting like he thought 9 p.m. was too late for Biden. Well, if Biden's great and there's no mental decline, why would 9 p.m. be too late? And then he's like, yeah, he did that shuffle, that he did where it's like, okay, so you did notice that because when Republicans brought it up, you called them crazy and you said they were bigots and blah, 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 blah. And it just points out like how we should never trust another damn thing the mainstream media tells us. Like he's basically admitting he knew the whole damn time and he lied. And, they just continued to push this narrative that Biden was some young spring chicken. And it's just the whole thing pisses me off. And I know I'm not saying anything that we didn't already know, but this is another reason why no one trusts the media and why they're going to continue losing viewers and why it's going to continue hurting the Democrat Party. Like they can't, keep getting away with this nonsense. And I'm just glad to see like it's finally all coming out and we weren't crazy. The people believing this shit were the crazy ones. So,
and you know what? I guarantee you, there are a shit ton of people, like my mom's husband, who believe that he's just now come to these conclusions.
oh yeah, I'm sure. I think those people are getting less and less, more and more people are waking up to it. But yeah, there's always going to be those like diehard mainstream, people. So, okay, I have to end with a Harvard update because I know we've talked a lot about Harvard and losing its federal funding, and I guess it's risking losing its federal funding again. Like this thing is still going on because they just can't bring themselves to treat their Jewish students with decency and respect. And it's just so horrible looking at like their behavior throughout this whole thing. So a federal task force that was led by the Trump administration has, I guess, formally accused Harvard University of failing to protect Jewish students and faculty from all of this anti-Semitic harassment. And now they're issuing a civil rights violation. So remember the other day I talked about the new assistant AG, Hermeet Dillon, and she's going after these types of cases. And so they're being threatened with losing like all federal funding. And this would include their student aid programs, research grants. They already have $2.6 billion frozen, as well as contracts and partnerships. And so the report references, quote, willful participation in harassment cases, including incidents that led to Jewish students being spat on, heckled with Hail Hitler, and physically intimidated. And Tara, what's so alarming to me is across social media on really both the right and the left, it's more so the left, but there are certain parts of the right that think it is absolutely okay to discriminate against Jewish people publicly and on social media. And what they're saying is like, well, this is just our right to peacefully protest. Like that's their whole, excuse for what's happening at these Ivy League schools. But that's not what's happening. Like there's also this thing called the Civil Rights Act where you cannot discriminate against people because of their race and religion. And this is exactly what's happening to Jewish students at these Ivy League schools. And what's sick is these schools are absolutely condoning it. So, more than 500 Jewish students participated in these listening sessions. And here's the key findings: over 25% felt physically unsafe, nearly 60% faced bias or discrimination, and 75% feared expressing political views. So, Harvard is accused of being deliberately indifferent and have been given an ultimatum. They can reform or face the loss of billions of dollars in federal support. And I'm totally on board with this. I don't think a private school with billions in their endowment and an $87,000 a year tuition needs any federal funding, but they certainly don't need it if they're not going to play by the rules and they're going to outright violate the Civil Rights Act. So I'm
I
glad that
think
this is
I think
happening.
Harvard needs to be shut down. Like, just
I
shut the
know.
fucking place down.
Why is this still going on? This should have been already like taken care of a while back. I think they've been given more than enough time to try
Why
and
does
correct
anyone
this.
why does anyone want to go there anymore? Like, does the school have any credibility at this point? I'm gonna say no.
No, I mean their reputation is like absolutely tainted. Um, so I don't know, but back to what I was saying with social media and how there's all these people that just think it's totally acceptable to push anti-Semitic rhetoric. Um, this is where we are seeing like this portion of the conservative movement that is really speaking out and turning on Candace Owens. So, I mean, everyone used to love her on the right, but she has been publicly spewing like all kinds of crazy anti-Semitic things on her podcast. And like, I don't even mean just against, Israel or the war or Netanyahu. Like, it's very generalized to speaking about Jewish people and like the religion as a whole. And it's disgusting that it's like it's being normalized. And so many people are like falling for this and think it's totally okay to be that way. And just like you talked about on Monday, you have the New York City mayor candidate calling for global intifada. And I just don't understand it. It's almost like none of these people learned about the Holocaust in school. And I mean, I remember learning about it in school in great detail and thinking like, how do people just stand by and let this happen? But I'm starting to see like just how easy it is to brainwash people to be hateful. You have like the media in on it and the Ivy League schools and people on the left, but then these few key players like Candace Owens on the right, and everyone just all of a sudden thinks it's okay to be anti-Semitic. It's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy.
I do think social media has a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's just crazy because I used to really like her.
I know. It's a lot of people are questioning because she used to be a radical leftist. Then she went all the way to the right, and now she seems to be going back to the radical left. So I don't know what's going on with her, but it's very strange and highly concerning. So, anyhow, man, we covered a lot, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about come Friday. So, thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you back here on Friday.